Hello everybody. Today I thought I would try doing something a little different. So along with having the model showcase, I wanted to start doing some speed rig videos where I comment over them, just to kind of give you an idea of my process from start to finish, in case you haven't seen any of my rigging streams. And yeah, maybe it could be a little bit helpful, just kind of seeing how I go about making my models. Today's model was both drawn and rigged by me for the lovely Lyra, or X Space Bunny. Her Twitter and Twitch will be linked below. She is super sweet, so please check her out. Yeah, and let's just get right into it. So I always begin by doing the mesh and hierarchy. You kind of have to. I actually have a video going through how I set up the mesh and hierarchy, and while it's different for each individual model, how exactly you go about it doesn't change that much model to model. I'll have a little card up there that you can check out and watch if you haven't done so. And then right after I set up the mesh and hierarchy, I like to start off with the eyes open and smile. I set this up differently from how I normally do the eyes, considering this is a chibi model, it's a little bun model, and the eyes are dots, so they don't have as many parts. It's really just the eye itself and the eye shine. So in some ways it was a lot more simple to do, but in other ways it was more challenging, because although I didn't have as many parts to work with, I had to make sure that the deforms I was doing on the eyes were in a natural way and looked okay for each step of the way. I'm really sorry that rhymed. That wasn't planned. But yeah, so I just did, I tried doing it for each individual eye rather than rigging one eye and then copying it over, but I didn't like how that looked. I don't mind a little bit of asymmetry. In fact, I think asymmetry can help make a model look more natural, but I think there was just too much asymmetry there, so I decided to go ahead and copy over the right eye to the left eye. And then I started working on the mouth. So this is the way that I found easiest to do little uwu mouths. I set it up differently from how I would normally do the mouth. So I have the top lip, the bottom lip, the top and bottom flesh, the open mouth and the tongue, and then I have the little mouth balls that you could see. And I like to do those separately because I just find that it's too difficult to try to distort them along with the actual line of the mouth. So the way I do this differently from how I would normally do a mouth is I start with the mouth fully open. So the bottom lip and the bottom flesh are at the bottom rather than alongside the top lip and the top flesh. So I kind of work in reverse from mouth open to mouth closed in order to bring the bottom lip up. And doing it this way results in less distortion than there would be if I started with the bottom lip in the same position as the top lip. There's still a lot of work required that I have to do in order to make sure that the mouth movements look nice and natural and to make sure that the distortions aren't too bad. I'd like to find a better way because I find that it's harder for me to make different mouth shapes when I do the uwu mouths. I don't know what else to call them. I guess animal mouths, muzzle mouths, I'm not sure. Yeah, but I would like to find a better way to do it so that I can do different mouth shapes. Maybe that just involves being better at drawing animal mouths, who knows? But I found that this way works for me for now. I also decided to do fewer keyforms than I would normally do for a mouth, since it's just a chibi model, so it's a little more simple. I also originally drew a frown, but I decided that I was okay with the distorted frown that I came up with just on my own, so I still have the frown part in the model, but I don't end up using it at all because I'm okay with how the frown ended up looking. Also, this is the case for both the eyes and the mouth, but I usually have to go in and edit the eyes and the mouth in order to add more vertices to the mesh. I just find it easier to do it on an as-needed basis rather than to go in when I'm setting up the mesh and hierarchy and like meticulously add individual vertices to the eyes and the mouth parts in the very beginning, because who knows, I might find out later on that I didn't actually need to do that and I just wasted like 10 minutes or however long it takes me. So just for efficiency's sake, I like to do it kind of as I need to do it rather than in the very beginning. So then I move on to the head XY, and I worked really, really hard on this model to do that 180-degree head turn that I've been seeing on Twitter. I decided to try it on a simple model first, but eventually I really want to do it on this model as well. So maybe look forward to that in the near future. Maybe, perhaps. This took me a long time, and I'd say the majority of this entire rigging process was doing the head XY. Doing the head X, so left to right, in and of itself took a while just because that 180-degree turn was kind of a pain in the butt. But I got it done, and I'm pretty proud with how it turned out too. But once I set up the Y parameters, the up and down, and then linked them together, it kind of broke. So I found out that I can't really do the synth corners for the head angles, and there's always issues when you try to synth corners for the parts when you're doing the head angles. I don't know why, but the program just has a lot of trouble with it. I don't really know how that works, but because of that, I had to kind of do the corners from scratch almost. Not completely, but there was a lot that I had to fix for sure. I think there's a lot of room for improvement for that 180-degree turn, but I'm still pretty happy with how it turned out. And when I was doing it, I actually, when I got to a 3/4 view, like this, a 3/4 view that I was happy with, I actually set up another keyform on the 20, like the 20-degree parameter. Like, so it goes from -30 to 30 for the head X. When it was at 20, I just added a keyform and copy and pasted the keyform at the very end. That was that 3/4 turn to that 20 keyform. I hope that makes sense. But I did that in order to kind of save my progress so that if I really hated how the 180-degree turned out, I could just go back, copy paste the 3/4 turn, and just have it be a normal 3/4 turn. But it turned out that I really like how the head X turned out, so I didn't have to do that. And in order to copy paste the parts, I do go over this in my eyeball rigging tutorial, which I will have as a little card right up there. You can copy and paste keyforms by pressing Shift-Control-C and Shift-Control-V. Oh, and I also wanted to say that the reason why I haven't done any tutorials in a little while. I've been pretty busy with some other stuff, but specifically, one of the reasons why I haven't done a head X and Y tutorial is because there's so many different ways to do it that it's kind of difficult to explain exactly how to. It's really just tweaking a lot of things until it looks right. And if you're familiar with drawing and you know how to draw different head angles, that can make rigging a lot easier because then you kind of know like what the head is supposed to look at different angles. But if you don't, there's a lot of resources out there. So I will say that it's a good idea to look up references for head angles, such as like, especially with the corners. I still struggle with corners, but just to get an idea of how the head looks as it turns, it's a good idea to look up like different head angle references. And you can even import them into Live2D, like just make little PNGs of them and import them into the program, or add them as a PSD file, sorry. You could just import them into the program and use them as a reference, and it'll make it go a lot smoother. For simple models though, I like to have a face warp deformer that includes the head, the nose, or not the head, the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, and the mouth, so that I can move the face as a whole before going in and editing specific deformers like the eyes and the mouth. It doesn't seem to be that effective with human models. I prefer to just go with the details for the human models, like move them individually. But I find for the chibis and the animals with more simple parts like dot eyes and dot noses, that works just fine. And it can even be really helpful to get the perspective right when you do it as a whole face warp. Because you can kind of think of the deformer as a square and deform the square to fit around the head shape. Kind of like if you were to place a square of Kraft processed cheese product on a watermelon. Just like that. So here I got impatient and started doing some of the physics on the head, such as the little star string things. I find that whenever I start feeling a little burnt out from rigging, physics always bring me such joy, and they really help me get out of that funk. I feel like physics really are what help a model start to come to life, and I just love doing the physics so much. I think that head angles are really important too. Aside from, so I think my favorite parts of modeling are the eyes, the mouth, and the physics. Those three things are also the most important things in my opinion. I think the head angles are pretty important too, but I really don't have that much fun doing it. I love the end result though, and I think that makes it really worth the effort. But at the time of working on it, it's definitely a pain in the butt. I also really love doing ear physics specifically. Bunny ears are just so cute and floppy, and it's really fun to rig that. So here I finally start rigging the body. I didn't do too much with this since the bun's sitting down, but I did want to make the bunny's booty kind of slide over side to side. I made the paw prints simple little hearts, and I used clipping to hide and show them so you can see more of the hearts when the bunny slides over to the right. I'm pretty proud of how that turned out, even though the process was pretty simple. Speaking of process, another part of my process is also just kind of observing the model. I like to sit back when I've made significant changes and just go into the physics menu and move around the model and hit that play button and just kind of watch it move. Here's where I notice some of the biggest things that need changes, because sometimes I can get tunnel vision and I miss certain things that I meant to work on but just kind of forgot about. So here's when I start working on the different expressions and finishing up the physics. I made an alternate arm for this model. It was originally supposed to only be for the smug expression, but I think it could work for a lot of different purposes, so I just left it as a toggle by itself. And for toggles such as these, I try to make the transition smooth by matching the arm movements of both arms. So you have the arm that's up and the arm that's down, and when the arm is in the down position, I moved the arm up part to the arm down position as well, and vice versa for when the arm moves up. So that way, instead of there being a fade from one arm position to the next, you can actually physically see the arm moving up and down. It's not perfect, but I still think it looks better than the simple fade transition that I would have done before. I also did the same sort of thing for the sleepy expression, except instead of transitioning the eyes, I made it look like they closed before entering the sleepy expression. So for the head Z, I decided to move the body with the head for Z because there's no neck. So the head would look like it's completely detached from the body if it were to turn at an angle without any neck. I probably could have made the body fully move with the head as a whole because the model's so simple, but I decided to leave it as separate. I find that it's easier to change things if the parts are already separate, and then if I wanted to, I could always choose to combine them later. That's kind of my whole rigging philosophy. I find that it's always easier to start separate if you're not sure, and then you can combine them later. I also do this when I'm separating parts when I'm actually drawing a model. I separate a lot more than I think I might need to, like different shadows and different parts of the eye and everything. Because in the program, you can move parts as chunks anyway, so it makes more sense to separate them while you're there in the program rather than having to go back and edit things and re-import and all that jazz. And finally, I finished up the physics. So my goal for this was to make the bun super jiggly and wiggly. So I made the feet wiggle, the thighs jiggle, the head jiggle, and the body bounce as a whole. Out of everything I did, this definitely took the least amount of time, but it was also the most satisfying part. I had so much fun with this. I just really love rigging physics. I can't help it. But that is the bun all rigged up. Let me know what you think about this sort of commentary video. There's probably a lot that I could have talked about that I just didn't think about. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. I really hope you enjoyed this. If you did, maybe leave a like if you want. You don't have to. And I hope to see you in the next one. And I hope you have a cozy evening filled with stars.